So I skated over the much more complicated and difficult question, which is how do you adjudicate between different religious faiths? How do you adjudicate between different moral systems? And I think science plays a really important role there. So if a religious system makes a claim that is somehow scientifically clearly false, and that's a big count against that religious system. And so for Christians, for example, the central core of Christian faith is the fact that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. So if one day we were to find a tomb that is unequivocally the tomb of Jesus Christ who never rose from the dead, then that would falsify my faith. And I think it's important for faith to be falsifiable in that kind of sense. Otherwise it becomes a little bit too slippery. The thing about Christian faith a little bit is like this. It's a little bit like when you get to know somebody and you want to get married to them. It's not like a blind faith is stepping out on the street and grabbing the first best person you see and then just believing without taking evidence. You try to gather evidence. You ask yourself, as a Christian, for example, one thing you do is you ask yourself, is the Bible, does it seem to be a reliable document? Does it have aspects of it that are the kinds of things you might expect from a book, from a divine book? And you might ask yourselves questions like, is there some historical reliability to this? So if people claim that Jesus Christ existed, is there some good historical evidence for this? And these are really important things to take you a certain step of the way. And you need to take those things seriously. You need to study them and think about them and ask yourself, does this make sense? And if there are really deep, logical or scientific problems, then that counts against it. But in the end of the day, Christian faith is not just about a kind of intellectual assent to a set of propositions. It's also about a kind of personal interaction with God. So just like in my own married life, the fact that my wife loves me or I love my wife is not just a set of things I can tick off, but it's also something that I take a step of faith and assume that it's true. And as I do that, I actually gain more evidence for it. So it's like a feedback process. I have to make a step of faith. In other words, just like Christians would say, you gather some evidence, but at some point you take a step of faith and you decide to believe in God and commit yourself to God. And only by so doing do you actually gather some of the evidence that might be there for religious belief.